You might remember that we recently did a video with my friend Jerry Waggoner. Jerry is a full-time Christian counselor. And while we sat and talked that day, I started talking about, Jerry, let's say I'm a worship leader in a church and I've got to end up with a conflict with my senior pastor, whether I'm full-time or whether I'm a volunteer or whatever it might be. He's kind of the guy over me, if you will, in this position. What happens? How do I walk this through? All of that kind of stuff. And Jerry laughed because, what he said is it's inevitable. It's going to happen. You get different personalities, different ways of thinking. And so there's ultimately, at some point, there's going to be conflict. It has to happen. And so he addressed it. But the things he said, I'm going to highly, highly recommend that you watch this with your pastor, because Jerry comes at it kind of from both sides of the equation, offers some really practical kind of stuff. And so I'm going to suggest that you sit down. Even if your relationship is great, this will make it even better. If it's not as great, then this will be a thing that can help. So take a listen to what Jerry has to say.
I have seen situations in churches between subordinates and head pastors where they had conflict and it was handled miserably. The pain in that is, Paul says outdo each other in showing each other honor. And if we dishonor each other and do power plays and all that kind of stuff, what are we saying to the world about who Jesus is and what we know about him? It's just so sad when we treat each other in shabby ways. My opportunity in Jesus is to say, they'll know who you are and that you were sent from the Father because we love each other in appropriate ways. And so this dealing with conflict is a huge thing. It's a huge thing because it's going to be a given. It's not going to be if. So conflict resolution is the key skill, not only in marriages, but I think in any relationship. And certainly if we're going to work together in the church, addressing the kinds of things that pastors and worship leaders and associates have to deal with. Well, my goodness, if we can build a culture of authenticity, let love be without dissimulation. That's King James. Be totally sincere and authentic. So authenticity is the hallmark of the Christians. The thing that Jesus hated more than anything else was hypocrisy. Yeah, the leaven of the Pharisees. So no pretense. No pretense. None. None. So that's a much more honest, and it's more encouraging to everybody in the pew when they know, hey, these guys are real. The key is in building relationships of trust and mutual respect. And so I don't have control over how somebody who is over me in a position handles things and so on. But Jesus said that when he was asked about the two great commandments, he said, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Then he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And if you get that, you got everything in the book. And in one place, he just cites the second commandment. Love your neighbors yourself, and says that's the whole picture. And so I think that is the guiding rule in relationships for us who follow him. And I really like what folks at National Institute of Marriage, which is a spin-off of Gary Smalley's work, and it's now with Greg Smalley and others, the marriage ministry arm of Focus on the Family, describe the second commandment, the second great commandment, love your neighbors yourself, as a no losers policy. And I think that's a guiding principle in conflict. And it's like this: if I go into it, whether I'm the head pastor or somebody on staff, such as a worship leader, and my heart's attitude is, if we have a conflict or a difference, and they're going to happen. They're inevitable because we're different people. We're fallen people, and even so, we have different personalities, different backgrounds, all kinds of different strengths. And Paul says, you can't say because you're not an arm, you need to be a leg. So, but the guiding principle is, whoever say, Joe, I know we have a difference here. I'm not even interested in trying to consider something as a solution set that you don't feel honored and respected and cared for, and your position isn't really taken seriously. But mine has to be too. In any relationship, parent-child, superior to a subordinate, husband-wife, which I have more experience with. That is a guiding principle. I am to honor the other person as I would honor myself. And in fact, if I am not also honoring myself, I can't honor them appropriately because I'm supposed to honor them the way I'm honoring myself. And so if I go into a situation where we have a difference, even if there is a power differential in relationship, if both of us go into that saying, I want this to be a win-win. I don't want either one of us to come out feeling like a loser, because if either one of us loses, the relationship lost, and our community is lost. And so if I do that, then I build a factor of safety into the relationship, because I know going in that he's not going to, or she's not going to ask me to give away my store. It's not going to happen. And I'm not going to do that with them. Most of us want to avoid conflict because we don't know how to deal with it. In marriage situations, how you deal with conflict is the key skill. That is the single biggest predictor of how the relationship will do. It's possible to get to the place where we can say, oh, we've got a conflict, good! Because that becomes the context within which we'll probably have to, the Lord will, relationships in which there's conflict, in which we really care about each other, are the ones where our heart issues are really surfacing. The deep things in me don't come out in casual relationships or even just in business relationships. They come out in loving relationships. And if in a church, if we're working together and pulling together and doing all that, and we have a conflict, it really can become, oh, good. This is the opportunity for us to look closely at ourselves and say, Lord, what is it in me that doesn't look like you, that you want to deal with, so that you can be more manifest in each of our lives? Well, I would think that if I'm a lead pastor, if I'm following the Lord Jesus, I'm a servant. And more than anybody, I am called to model Jesus' kind of leadership. And he's the one who says this. If you love me, you'll keep my commandment, and my commandment is you love each other the way I loved you. And he laid down his life for us. So, and we can respect differences. And times we can even say it's better for us not to work together, because who I am and what my gifts and callings are don't mesh well with where you're going. And we can bless each other and do that.
Wow, that was quite a lot of information, but I think it's extremely worthwhile and extremely helpful to understand we're going to have conflict, but how we handle it is really the key. And I even like what he said there at the very end, where he said, there might come a time where we're going to part ways, but it's not going to be, it shouldn't be, in the way that I've seen it done so many times, where maybe the senior pastor or the board or whatever is saying, you're out of here, we're tired of you. I just don't think that's the way God would want us to handle situations like that. And so I'm going to suggest that you dialogue through these things. Look at the points that he makes. here in this video and talk about those things and what that can look like in the midst of conflict. Because again, it's going to happen. It's just inevitable that you're going to have conflict. So how you handle it in a loving, caring, win-win, caring about the other person, gentle way is going to be the way that you want to go about this from both sides. So talk through some of these things and set a foundation that's going to make it better when you do end up with those conflicts.
Brought to you by myworshipleadingcoach.com.
Helping you to be more fully equipped as a worship leader.